Chapter 1486, Idiot. Lu Shuyang hurriedly said respectfully, "It's just an insignificant skill. Please don't laugh at me, sir." After a pause, he hesitated and said, "Sir, have you found Sir Golden Wolf?" Silver Fox squinted with a hint of ruthlessness. "I found him." Lu Shuyang raised his head abruptly, but before he looked joyful, Silver Fox continued, "However, he is now an idiot who has lost both cultivation and mind." "What?" Lu Shuyang raised his head in shock and disbelief. He was really shocked. The Green Vince clan wasn't the strongest in the upper realm, but it was still a moderate force. Golden Wolf was the most powerful subordinate under the Lord. Who could kidnap Golden Wolf and turn him into a fool? Silver Fox stared at Lu Shuyang and slowly said, "Although Golden Wolf is an idiot now, after he came back, he kept muttering about the wood source. President Lu, did you really find the wood source in the magical beast forest? Or did you hide something from the Lord?" Lu Shuyang's heart skipped a beat, but he pretended to be ignorant and guilty. "Sir Silver Fox, it's not that I was hiding something, but that I met an unexpected person in the magical beast forest and was seriously injured. I devoured a few people of the Doctors' Association to be able to escape from the danger. I didn't know what happened afterward." Silver Fox frowned as if trying to verify the truth from his words. "In Miluo continent, is there anyone else who can beat you to the brink of death, President Lu? Who is that person?" Thinking of that person and the terrifying feeling of his palm piercing through his body, Lu Shuyang felt chills down his spine. He also learned about that person's true identity from Lu Jishi. Lu Shuyang took a deep breath and said slowly, "It's the King of Hell, Nangong Yu." "It's him!" Silver Fox exclaimed, but he was just shocked without doubting. He frowned deeply under the mask and murmured, "Could it be that the Nangong family also wants to snatch the wood source? Otherwise, how could that kid suddenly appear in the magical beast forest? No, I have to go back and inform the Lord." He glanced at Lu Shuyang and said in a deep voice, "The fluctuation of wood source in the magical beast forest must be related to Beastkin or Miracle Healer Academy. I will send people to investigate the Beastkins. You keep an eye on the Miracle Healer Academy. If there is any news about the wood source, report it to the Lord. Are you clear?" "Yes, sir. I will do my best." It wasn't until he was sure that Silver Fox's aura was completely gone that Lu Shuyang let out a breath. He looked in the direction where Silver Fox disappeared with a mocking smile. "The wood source is destined to be mine. No one else can get it. The Nangong family." Thinking of what Silver Fox said just now, Lu Shuyang frowned again. Could it be that King of Hell Nangong Yu has any background? And Nangong Yu, who was mentioned by Lu Shuyang and Green Vince clan, also returned to the King of Hell mansion in Jinling Kingdom City a few days later. Except for Bai Hu and Qing Wan who were following Heshi, and Xian Wu who was cleaning up the Feng family, all the other subordinates knelt in front of him to pay respects. Nangong Yu waved to let them get up, then he went straight to the point, "I want to marry Shi Yu." The words were so abrupt that everyone was taken aback, unable to recover. But this did not include Foodie Wu Yu. Wu Yu immediately jumped up excitedly when he heard that Shi Yu, who was a superb cook, was about to become his own princess. He even forgot about his manner. Long live the princess. "Master, you should have married her sooner. That's great now. I won't have to worry about not having any good food in the future." Chapter 1487. Heshi and Shiyu Xian gave this shameful guy a disgusted look. Then he bowed and said, "Congratulations, master." Wu Chen and Wu Go looked at each other. They both saw the embarrassment and surprise in each other's eyes. Isn't this Shiyu known to the world today as a man? Why would master marry a man? Moreover, I remember that the master had proposed marriage to the third miss of Nalan Mansion only a few months ago. Although Nalan Mansion was wiped out later and the third miss was probably dead. But doesn't that mean that master should like woman? Why did he suddenly like man? But Wu Chen quickly restrained his mind, bowed and said, "Congratulations, master. Whether it's a man or a woman, as long as master likes it, no matter who the person is, he must marry back. It doesn't matter if it's a beastkin. What's more, who in the world doesn't know that Shiyu's medical skills are superb? He even owns an industry like Shengde Hall that everyone is flocking to. Only such a young genius is worthy of our master. As for the succession of the family, immortal cultivators usually live a long life. Many people don't value their offspring that much at all. Wu Go frowned, intending to say something, but he finally lowered his head silently. Nan Gongyu took a full view of their expressions, but he did not explain. He just said indifferently, I summoned you today to tell you that Shiyu will not only be my princess, but her order and status will also be equal to mine from now on. You will be loyal to me in the future, and you must also be loyal to Shiyu. If I find out that anyone dares to disrespect Shiyu, I will never show mercy. Do you understand? Several people, including the butlers of the King of Hell Mansion, all bowed in response. After Wu Xan and others retreated, only Qing Long and Butler Nan remained beside Nan Gongyu. Butler Nan couldn't help but asked, why didn't young master tell Wu Go and the others that Shiyu is a woman and she is exactly the Nalan He Shiyu proposed a few months ago? Nan Gongyu tapped his fingers on the table, frowned slightly, and said, don't ever mention again that Shi'er is the third miss of the Nalan family. Shiyu is Shiyu, Nalan Hishi is Nalan Hishi. Nalan Hishi had already died, and Shiyu is about to be my Nan Gongyu's wife. Uncle Nan, do you understand? Butler Nan was startled for a moment, then remembered the mysterious appearance and disappearance of the man in red clothes that destroyed the Nalan family in a snap of his fingers. His mind shook for a moment. He had understood the meaning of his master and quickly bowed. Subordinate understands. I will also tell Wu Xin and Wu Yu, who know about it, to not spread it. Nan Gongyu nodded, but he did not loosen his frown. Regarding Hishi's origin and Enling Yue's portrait, Nan Gongyu always had bad feelings. He instinctively knew that no one should discover Hishi's true identity, otherwise it might bring disaster. Therefore he could only marry Shiyu, not the third miss of the Nalan family. As for whether Shiyu was a man or a woman and whether people in the world would spread gossip about him. Would he, Nan Gongyu, care about such gossip? Nan Gongyu knocked on the table twice, and suddenly said to Qing Long, go and get the Xingyun Lujing. Qing Long was startled, and opened his eyes slightly. Master is the Nangong family who wants to contact the upper realm? Naturally. Nan Gongyu slowly raised the corners of his mouth, but his smile was a little complicated, with nostalgia and disgust, helplessness and hatred. Now that I'm getting married, I should at least let them know anyway, right? Chapter 1488. Nangong family. Qing Long paused for a moment, then he silently took out the Nebula Du mirror from the King of Hell Mansion's underground palace. The Nebula Du mirror was a treasure that could connect two worlds. The energy contained in it was unimaginable, so ordinary storage devices couldn't store it. The Nebula Du mirror was almost half the height of a person. It was inlaid with exquisitely carved nebula patterns. The mirror was made of bronze. If one just looked at it this way, it was an ordinary and cheap bronze mirror with at most a little bigger size. Nan Gongyu swiped his finger lightly, dripped a few drops of blood oozed into the Nebula Du mirror, and injected spiritual power. The original gloomy mirror surface suddenly lit up with a dazzling light. The bronze mirror, which was still slightly rusty, seemed to suddenly turn into a vortex that refracted colorful light, leading to a very far place. After about a quarter of an hour, the vortex on the mirror surface disappeared, and a clear image appeared. At this time, there was chaos on the other side. Figures could be seen running back and forth and shouting, "It's young Master Yu! It's really young Master Yu's contact. Quick, hurry up and inform Master and the old lady." Nan Gongyu watched this scene quietly without any change in expression. Looking at those familiar and unfamiliar house furnishings, Qing Long's eyes fluctuated for a while, then they slowly calmed down. You are, is it really you?" A crying voice came from the other end of the Nebula Du mirror. Nan Gongyu's body trembled slightly, then a white-haired old woman appeared in the image. The old woman's cultivation was already at the gold core stage, but she looked to be in her 70s. Her face was covered with wrinkles. Seeing Nan Gongyu, the old woman threw herself in front of the Nebula Du mirror and cried loudly, "It's really my Yu-er. Why haven't you contacted Grandma for so long? Do you know how Grandma misses you much? The coldness in Nangong Yu's eyes was melting like the snow in spring. If there was anyone else in the Nangong family whom he cared about, it was only this grandmother. He said softly, "Grandmother, grandson is unfilial." On the other side of Nebula Du Mirror, a pair of slender hands supported the old woman. A crisp voice sounded like an aureole coming out of the valley. "Old lady, don't be sad anymore. Didn't Cousin Yu contact you now? If you still cry again, Cousin Yu will be sad too?" The old woman wiped away her tears, then she calmed down under the girl's persuasion and sat down in front of the Nebula Du Mirror. After the old woman left the mirror, Nangong Yu quickly saw the scene in front. There were quite a few people sitting in front of Nebula Du Mirror this time. Several of his uncles, except the most useless third uncle Nangong Exin, all came. Even the current family master of the Nangong family, his second uncle Nangong Hua, was sitting right in front of Nebula Du Mirror and looked at him with sharp eyes. The one supporting the old lady was a beautiful young girl who looked only 17 years old, but her cultivation had already reached the nascent soul stage. Even in Siam continent, she was a very rare talent. Nangong Yu had never seen this girl before, and he didn't care about her. On the contrary, the girl, who saw Nangong Yu's handsome face and sensed that unfathomable cultivation, couldn't help but lower her face with a blush. As soon as Nangong Hua sat down, he said in a dignified manner, I heard that you have already broken through to the soul-splitting stage. Now that you can challenge the tribulation, shouldn't it be time to return to Siam continent? You're also a member of the Nangong family, shouldn't you come back early and contribute to the Nangong family? Chapter 1489. Fiancé? Nangong Yu didn't even look at him, completely treating him as heir. He just looked at the old woman with a dignified expression and said with a hint of shyness, "Grandmother, I contacted you today to tell you that I'm getting married." Old lady Nangong was taken aback for a moment, then she was surprised. "Married? You are going to get married? Who are you going to marry?" The girl who was supporting old lady Nangong immediately tightened her hand. Her expression looked uncertain. Nangong Yu thought of Heshi's beautiful face, her clear and purple phoenix eyes, and a gentle and sweet smile appeared on his mouth unconsciously. "Grandmother, her name is Shiyu. He is the first person I like, and she is the only one I want to marry in my life." However, before Nangong Yu finished speaking, he was interrupted by Nangong Hua with a livid face. "What Shiyu? Where did the dubious woman come from?" "I absolutely disagree. As a member of the Nangong family, how can you marry a person from the lower realm? This will put shame on our Nangong family." Nangong Yu's face suddenly turned gloomy. There was a fierce storm in his dark eyes. "Second uncle, did I ask your opinion? Since when can they decide my, Nangong Yu's marriage? If it isn't for the sake of the same surname Nangong, I won't even give a notice." When Nangong Hua was stared at by such a pair of eyes, he felt a chill all over his body. Obviously, the young man is only 20 years old. Obviously, he is my nephew. Even if he is also at the soul-splitting stage, I have advanced to the soul-splitting stage for hundreds of years. How can he be intimidated by such a kid? Nangong Hua couldn't help but think of her elder brother, Nangong Outyin. He was also a terrifying man. Since childhood, I was suppressed by him to the extent that I couldn't lift my head. I was jealous and hated him, but when I heard that he was expelled from Nangong family and stayed in the lower realm forever, I was exhilarated for a long time. Now that I'm in charge of the Nangong family as the family master, logically speaking, even if Nangong Outyin is in front of me, I shouldn't be afraid. However, facing Nangong Yu, I'm really timid. I even have an inexplicable illusion that Nangong Yu is much scarier than Nangong Outyin. Nangong Hua suddenly came back to his senses. When he saw the young and handsome face in Nebula Du Mirror, he suddenly became angry. "What do you mean by that? You're a descendant of our Nangong family, and you are destined to return to Siam continent in the future. How can you marry a lowly woman in a place like Miluo continent?" As Nangong Hua said, he glanced at the girl who was supporting the old woman and said in a deep voice, "Besides, don't you know that you already have a fiancé? Are you being fair to Jingshui? The girl supporting the old woman's face turned pale when she heard the words. She looked like she was about to cry. Nangong, you didn't even bother to take a look. He said with a sneer, why didn't I know that I still have a fiancé? What's more, since when can second uncle decide my marriage? Hearing his rude words, Nangong Hua's face became even more ugly. He gritted his teeth and said, Jingshui is your cousin, and she is also the most outstanding disciple of Siam Continent's Yun family. Your father had already arranged this marriage for you before he was dead. He just couldn't tell you himself. There was a gloomy look in Nangong Yu's eyes. My mother, Yun Charan, was exiled by the Yun family to the lower realm. If she hadn't met my father later and fell in love with each other, my mother would have died in the Miluo continent. Chapter 1490. Ashamed into anger, father hated the Yun family and those from the Lu family the most. He hated them so much that he didn't hesitate to perish together with them. Now these people actually have the face to tell me that my father has arranged a marriage for him with a girl from the Yun family? What an absurd joke. However, Nangong Hua was still condemning. Over the years, there have been countless high-rank martial artists who wanted to marry Jingshui, but she has been devoted to you. You can't let her down. Yun Jingshui lowered her head shyly. Qing Long, who was standing behind Nangong Yu, was already full of anger when he heard this. He had always hoped that his master would return to Siam. After all, his master's parents were originally from Siam, so he always had respect for the Nangong family on the Siam continent. However, when he came into contact with them today, he didn't expect these people to be so greedy and shameless. Qing Long was about to say something when the door of the room was pushed open suddenly. Butler Nan walked in angrily, pointed at the Nebula Du mirror and scolded, Second Master, how can you talk nonsense like this? When our master and madam were alive, they said that no marriage should be arranged for young master when he is an adult. They wouldn't even let him marry the woman of the Yun family and Lu family. How could young master have a fiancé? After Nangong Hua's lie was exposed on the spot, his face turned green and red immediately. He looked at Butler Nan fiercely, and he even used coercion. You old fool, do you have the right to speak here? Do you believe the value of Nebula Du mirror was that some fundamental essence and spiritual attacks could penetrate time and space? Butler Nan was no more than a gold core stage. Now that he was being oppressed by the spiritual pressure of a soul-splitting stage master, his face couldn't help turning pale. Nangong Yu stood in front of Butler Nan and squinted slightly, then Nangong Hua suddenly widened his eyes with fear. A bead of sweat slowly slid down from his forehead. Nangong Yu sneered and said, Second uncle, are you ashamed into anger that your lies have been exposed? Before Nangong Hua could speak again, Nangong Yu said coldly, I'll say it again. Don't say that my parents will never make such a marriage contract for me. Even if there is a marriage contract, it has nothing to do with me. The only one I want to marry is Shiyu. If anyone dares to stop me, I will make him pay a terrible price. Even you, my dear uncles, will be the same. For a moment, the Nebula Du mirror was completely silent. Everyone in the Nangong family had livid faces and eyes full of anger, but the strength Nangong Yu just showed made them realize how terrifying this man was. They didn't dare to act rashly. Old Lady Nangong coughed lightly, breaking the silence. Don't be angry. Your second uncle also wanted to remind you because he is worried that you would be cheated. Seeing Nangong Yu's gloomy face, the old lady immediately said with a gentle and kind expression, However, if you really thinks she is a good girl, then I will definitely support you. After all, the most important is that you truly like her. As soon as the old lady said this, Yun Jingshue's face turned pale in an instant. She couldn't help but whisper with sobs, Old lady. Hearing this, the old lady patted her little hand lightly and gave her deep eyes, but she didn't say much. Nangong Yu's originally gloomy face eased a lot, and he smiled slightly. Grandmother, Sheer is the person I chose. I believe that you will also like her. Chapter 1491. Good way. As for the others, even if they had the same surname as Nangong, they had nothing to do with him. The image on the Nebula Do mirror disappeared, and Qin Long moved the treasure back. Butler Nan looked at his master's indifferent face, but he felt pain in his heart. Although master didn't show any emotion, I knew that the master is once again more disappointed with that family. When old master and madam were killed, young master was still a naive child. Before, he would laugh and make trouble, but in the blink of an eye, he is as cold as ice. He no longer shows other expressions on his face. While young master was hiding his strength and pretended to get along well with the Feng family, he also wants to investigate the truth about the deaths of master and madam. For so many years, before meeting Miss Shiyu, young master had never really smiled happily. Now that young master is finally able to marry Miss Shiyu, the Nangong family actually wants to meddle in his marriage. They even got him a fiancée with ill intentions. It's like they don't want young master to have a good life at all. Nangong Yu squinted suddenly, tapped his fingers on the table, and suddenly said in a deep voice to Qin Long who just came in, "I have a task for you." Qin Long bowed and listened to his orders. After Nangong Yu finished his words, Qin Long opened his mouth slightly, showing a shocked expression. Butler Nan immediately smiled delightfully. He immediately said, "Young master, this is a good way. Just let everyone know that you are going to marry Miss Shiyu. When the time comes, the marriage has been done. Let's see what kind of trouble can the people of the Nangong family with malicious intentions make." Qin Long gave Butler Nan a complicated look. He couldn't help complaining secretly in his mind, "You only know that this is a good way to deal with Nangong family, but you don't know that master hasn't even successfully proposed yet. When the news of the marriage is spread to everyone, the princess..." Qin Long shuddered, but he bowed his head and went to execute the order. After returning from the magical beast forest, Hushi's days returned to a rare calm. The amount of books in Miracle Healer Academy's library really surprised her, especially the materials on medical skills and pill refining. They could make up for her lack of foundation and experimentation. Moreover, Hushi always felt that those academy elders were treating her inexplicably well now. They let her read the books for free, use the spirit stones for free, vacate the best pill refining room for her, and even assign the elite elders and branch deans to teach her every day. One day, just after the class, Dean Huang couldn't help but excitedly said, "Shiyu, a genius like you should come to learn how to forge weapons. How can you be a pill refiner? It's really a waste of talent. If you learn about forging, you will definitely become the best forge master." Hushi had a headache while listening to Dean Huang's nagging. This was not the first time that Dean Huang asked her to change to forge weapons. It should be said that this was not the first elder who asked her to change to learn other skills. For some reason, after unlocking the first level of the wood source, Hushi found that she was learning quickly and easily now. But she has always known that skill lies in proficiency rather than the number of skills. For her, the most important and most interesting thing was always the art of healing and poisoning. Chapter 1492. Congratulations. As for other skills such as forging, array, and planting, she only seemed to know a little superficially. First, it would help her medical skills. Second, they would also have a life-saving effect at critical moments. As Dean Huang was talking excitedly, Li Qingxuan's angry voice suddenly came from the side. "What are you talking about? Shiyu's talent in array is obviously better. Shiyu, listen to me. If you want to give up medical skills and pill refining, come and learn array from me. I have never accepted any disciple. You are the first one. What is there to learn in such boring forging skill?" Dean Huang had always been the best-tempered, but when it came to forging, his temper immediately exploded. "Your temper is bad like a cow. Why are you accepting disciple? Shiyu will be ruined if he follows you." Hushi looked at the two deans who were arguing like children, pressed her aching temples, and quietly backed away. As soon as she turned the corner, she breathed a sigh of relief. Then, Wei Chengyuan's laughter came into her ears. "It seems that being too popular is not a good thing." Hushi rolled her eyes at him angrily. "It seems that you have been very idle recently." Wei Chengyuan touched his nose with a smile and took out a jade box for her. Heshi raised her eyebrows. It's A New Year gift from Venerable Huiyu? Wei Qingyuan paused with a deep smile. Venerable Huiyu also specifically said that this gift is not considered as a reward for your life-saving grace, but as an elder's gift. Please accept it. Heshi opened the jade box and took a look. Inside was a delicate and beautiful purple jade hairpin. It had a luster. Complicated array runes could be faintly seen. Heshi's mouth twitched. What does Venerable Huiyu mean? Knowing that I'm now disguised as a man, he even gave me a girl's accessory. No matter how beautiful this purple jade hairpin is and how powerful the defensive array is, it is of no use to me. Wei Qingyuan couldn't help but poked his head to look at her, but Heshi had closed the jade box with a snap before Wei Qingyuan saw it. Wei Qingyuan wondered, what is it? So mysterious. Venerable specifically told me not to open it casually. Shiyu, can't you let me see it? Heshi glared at him. As she was about to speak, Lu Jishi in a pink dress walked over gracefully not far away. Seeing this woman, Wei Qingyuan immediately frowned with a disgusted expression. After returning from the magical beast forest, Lu Jishi was inexplicably absolved of her crimes. She was able to stay in Miracle Healer Academy like nothing happened. Moreover, Lu Jishi, who came back, seemed to be a different person. In the past, no matter what her insides were like, her appearance was always dignified and beautiful like a noble fairy. People could only watch her from a distance. But now Lu Jishi exuded a seductive and enchanting aura with every gesture. She had seduced many young students in Miracle Healer Academy. At this moment, several elites from the 4 upper courtyards surrounded her. As long as Lu Jishi gave a wink, they would be overwhelmed with excitement as if they would die for her. Lu Jishi glanced at Heshi with a hint of deep jealousy in her eyes, but a soft smile evoked on her face instead. Student Shiyu, congratulations? Congratulations? Heshi raised her eyebrows. Wei Qingyuan said directly in disgust, Lu Jishi, what are you planning again? Chapter 1493, Marriage News. Lu Jishi glanced at Wei Qingyuan and sneered with pity and sarcasm. Brother Wei, you stay by Shiyu's side with all your heart, but you don't know that he doesn't like you at all. Although he is a man, he has high aspirations. Now he even hooks up with His Royal Highness King of Hell. Am I right? Heshi frowned slightly. What do you mean by that? Lu Jishi smiled enchantingly, winked at the men around her, and said with a sneer, Shiyu, are you pretending to be stupid in front of me now? Nangong Yu actually wants to marry you, a toy boy, at all costs. He even announced your marriage news to the entire Miluo continent. Are you happy now? Are you proud of getting His Highness King of Hell? However, you never think that if Nangong Yu married a man, what kind of laughingstock would he become? You disregard the ethics and ruin Nangong Yu's reputation. How dare you walk around in the Miracle Healer Academy like nothing happens? Even I'm ashamed of you. All the men around Lu Jishi blushed. Although they agreed with Lu Jishi's words, no one dared to say anything more. Shiyu had established absolute prestige in Miracle Healer Academy. Even if they didn't completely surrender to her, few people dared to embarrass her face to face. Those who were severely slapped in the face in the past had taught them enough lessons. Heshi was also taken aback by the words. Her expression froze for a while. Marriage news spread throughout Miluo continent? What the hell is this? Siam continent Divine Moon Palace. Venerable Huiyu listened to his subordinate Wei Jianxing's report, and he said with a half-smile, I never thought that the Feng family, which the Dark Knight clan put so much effort into supporting in the lower realm, would be wiped out so easily by that brat of the Nangong family. I already had a high evaluation of him, but it seems that he is much more powerful than I imagined. Should I say that he really deserves to be the son of Nangong Outyen? Venerable Huiyu said and shook his head with some emotion. If there was no Nangong Outyen back then, the Nangong family would have been a bottom-level existence in Siam continent. They were even lower than the Feng family that was the vassal of the Dark Knight clan. Now the Nangong family is falling again, but this Nangong Yu is rising unexpectedly. Even I can't see through him. He is really unfathomable. Yan Xiao, who looked rough and unsuspecting, smiled and said, "Who cares if this brat is unfathomable or not? Anyway, he doesn't fight against us. We only need to watch the Dark Knight clan make a fool of themselves. I wonder how long can they wipe their ass clean." Haha, Wei Jianxing coughed lowly, interrupted Yan Zhao's rude words, and continued, "There is another news. Nangong Yu from Miluo Continent released the news that he is about to marry Shi Yu of the Miracle Healer Academy as his wife. I heard that the Nangong family in Siam Continent is furious over this. Especially because Nangong Hua originally wanted Nangong Yu to marry Yun Jingxue from the Yun family. Venerable Hui Yu smacked his tongue and said dissatisfiedly, "Why is Nangong Yu so quick? I still want to introduce that little girl to my Zhena. Why did he announce the marriage before I could think of a way to break them?" Wei Jianxing coughed again and again. "Venerable, is it really okay for you to say so brazenly that you want to break up the couple?" Chapter 1494. Marry a Man? Venerable Hui Yu is still dissatisfied. Where is Zhena? I asked him to go down to Miluo to meet that little girl Shi Yu. Did he do that? Where did he go? Wei Jianxing rubbed his nose and smiled. Venerable, Master Zhen said that he found a place to practice, and he has been away from the Divine Moon Palace for more than a month. Well, Master Zhen said that he is not interested in women, and he told you not to worry about it. Venerable Hui Yu called out, "Bastard," angrily, then he was taken aback and said with some hesitation, "Wait, when Nangong Yu announced the marriage news, did he mention whether Shi Yu is a man or a woman?" Wei Jianxing was startled, then he murmured after a long while, "No one will think that the wife Nangong Yu is going to marry is a man, right? No one in Siam Continent knew who Shi Yu was, so naturally they didn't doubt whether she was a man or a woman. As for Venerable Hui Yu, they already knew Shi Yu's identity as a woman." However, Wei Jianxing thought of Miracle Healer Academy. It seems almost everyone in Miluo Continent has acquiesced that Shi Yu is a man? Thinking of the expression on the face of the Nangong family when they thought Nangong Yu was going to marry a man, Wei Jianxing couldn't help but burst out laughing. Then the Divine Moon Palace erupted into loud laughter, which confused the guards outside the palace. The magical beast forest in Miluo Continent could be said to be the largest mountain range in the entire continent that spans several countries. In the northernmost corner, there was an inconspicuous small town named Huanan. Huanan City was unknown to many people in the entire Miluo Continent. It was located in a remote place and did not belong to any country. The population was even more pitiful. The total number of people was less than 1,000, but few people know that this was the base of the Nangong family in the lower realm. They didn't have any big tasks. Their purpose was to get intel in the lower world and report it to the Nangong family in the Siam Continent. The most important news they wanted to investigate was about Nangong Yu. The person in charge of guarding Huanan City was none other than Nangong Exin, who had the lowest cultivation level in the Nangong family and was considered the most useless. Nangong Exin was the younger brother of Nangong Hua with the same father and mother. Nangong Hua was handsome and tall while Nangong Exin was like a short winter melon. Not to mention he was ugly, he even had fat all over his body. If he wasn't at the nascent soul stage early stage with those sneaky mung bean eyes, he looked no different from a profiteer full of fat. It was late afternoon at this time. The sun was shining outside. The palace was also bright. But in the city lord's sleeping hall, there were ecstasy crashing sounds, panting sounds, and moaning and crying that made people blush. Third Master, lightning is too fast. Third Master, please spare me. On Nangong Xian's huge bed, a middle-aged man who was like a ball of meat pressed tightly against the body of a handsome young man. He kept banging the young man and making roars like a beast. With tears on the young man's face, he lay prone on the bed, moaning in pain and joy. After a long time, Nangong Exin let out a loud cry, finally satisfied, and fell on the young man with a look of contentment. The young man burst into a sweat on his bead. The stinky liquid and the smelly breath made the young man frown in anger, hatred, and disgust, but he quickly suppressed it. Nangong Xian's weight was at least 200 caddies. After being pressed by him for a long time, the young man could hardly breathe. Chapter 1495. Nangong Xian's toy boy. He showed a pitiful expression and said in a weak voice, "Third Master, you are so powerful." Binger almost couldn't stand it. "Can you let Binger go now?" Nangong Xian had already intended to end it, but when Nangong Xian saw his lustful look, his desire was soaring again. After about 300 rounds, there were hurried footsteps followed by a knocking on the door. Nangong Xian was infuriated for being interrupted. "Get lost. This group of people is really getting more and more annoying. They dare to disrupt me when I was having fun. When I'm done, I will remove all these useless things." Unexpectedly, the person who knocked on the door not only did not retreat, but he said anxiously, "Third Master, open the door quickly. It is a letter from Second Master, and it is very urgent." As soon as Nangong Xian heard that it was the letter from his second brother in the Siam continent, he didn't dare to neglect it. He was able to enjoy such lustful life and rich resources due to the indulgence of his second brother. Otherwise, with his nascent soul early-stage cultivation, even in Miluo continent, there were many people who were stronger than him. How could he be so carefree? Nangong Xinchi crawled off the bed with his heavy body. The fat all over her body was shaking. After getting off the bed, Nangong Xian stretched out his hand to touch the young man's back and said with a lustful smile, "Little fairy, wait for me to come back. I will definitely satisfy you." After saying that, with a big belly, he slowly walked out of his bedroom. The servant who sent a letter to Nangong Xian couldn't help but look into the room. Smelling the stench that filled the room and looking at the naked young man, he couldn't help showing a contemptuous expression. It's fine that the third master of the Nangong family doesn't like women and likes young men, but he even indulged in sex every day. It's really embarrassing for the Nangong family. No wonder master threw him to the lower realm. After Nangong Xian and the servant left, the young man who was lying on the bed slowly got up. The pitiful, well-behaved and docile look on his face just now had long since disappeared without a trace. His cold eyes stared at the direction in which Nangong Xian disappeared with deep loathing. If there were people from Miracle Healer Academy here at this time, they could identify of this young man at a glance. Tong Bing, the boy who the entire Miracle Healer Academy thought had died in the magical beast forest, unexpectedly appeared in the City Lord Mansion in Huanan City. He even became Nangong Xian's toy boy. In the conference hall, a middle-aged man in green clothes bowed to Nangong Xian casually and handed him an inscribed jade slip. Miluo and Siam continent couldn't communicate with each other with ordinary communication talismans. Treasures such as Nebula Dew Mirror, there weren't many of them even in the Siam continent. And this man in green clothes, named Jingluo, was Nangong Hua's confidant. His strength had reached the early stage of the soul-splitting stage, so he could break through the barrier between the continents and deliver the letter to the Miluo continent. Nangong Xian shook his fat body and sat down on the chair. He was very dissatisfied with Zhengluo's inattention when facing him. "Isn't it just a dog of my second brother? What are you acting so arrogantly?" Nangong Xian read the inscribed jade slip with divine sense, then he frowned. The order in this inscribed jade slip was very simple. It actually asked him to investigate Nangong Yu's fiancée, but it even led him to ruin the marriage between Nangong Yu and his fiancée? Isn't this asking me to court death? Chapter 1496. Terrifying nephew. Doesn't second brother know that what I fear the most is that cold nephew? It is even more frightening than when I see second brother. Nangong Xian couldn't help thinking about the past. At that time, Nangong Yu was only 16 years old and had just advanced to the gold core stage. Nangong Xian took a fancy to a manservant of Nangong Yu and wanted to rape him forcibly. In the end, Nangong Yu saw it. He launched his flying sword and chased Nangong Xian for the entire continent. The point was that Nangong Yu was only at the gold core stage, and Nangong Shi was already at the nascent soul stage, but he couldn't fight against Nangong Yu at all. He was slashed several times on his body. In the end, he knelt down and begged for mercy. He even brought out Nangong Xian's mother to barely force Nangong Yu to stop. After that, Nangong Xian never dared to provoke his terrifying elder nephew. Even the surveillance tasks ordered by Nangong Hua could only be carried out secretly. It had been a long time since what happened back then, but thinking about it now, Nangong Xian felt that the old wounds were aching. Thinking of this, Nangong Xian's attitude toward Jing Luo was very bad. Second brother only gives this order? He only knows that Nangong Yu is going to marry a person called Shiyu, and he has no other information? How do you want me to find this person? What's more, even if I found this person, will Nangong Yu listen to me? It is better not to be able to find anything so that I don't have to confront that lunatic Nangong Yu. Jing Luo said indifferently, "Don't worry, Third Master. Second Master had ordered me to stay in Miluo Continent and assist Third Master at any time. That is to say, the investigation must be done and the marriage must be ruined?" Although Jing Luo said he would stay, Nangong Xian was not happy at all. Nangong Yu had already left a deep trauma in Nangong Xian's mind, which made him feel that even Jing Luo, who was at the soul-splitting stage, might not be able to save him from Nangong Yu's sword. When Nangong Xian returned to his bedroom, his face was still sorrowful. He had no intention of indulging in sex. He just frowned with distress and displeasure. "Third Master, what's the matter? Did someone make you angry?" The young man's soft and slightly hoarse voice came from beside his ear. Nangong Xian waved his hand irritably, but he did not speak. A dark light flashed in Tong Bing's eyes. His slender body squeezed into Nangong Xian's arms. He hugged Nangong Xian's thick and short neck, and he praised and comforted several times in a gentle and tender voice. Originally, Nangong Xian would not tell these things to his toy boy, but this young man gave him harmless feeling, which made him relax his vigilance unconsciously. Listening to Nangong Xian's narration, Tong Bing's face became more and more surprised, then it was twisted by jealousy and anger. "King of Hell Nangong Yu wants to marry Shiyu? Isn't he a man like me? Is Nangong Yu's brain trampled by a magical beast and becomes an idiot? Besides, doesn't Shiyu already have a lover? He not only seduces Xian Mu, but he even seduces King of Hell Nangong Yu? Wait, in the confinement space of the magical beast forest, when Shiyu's lover was swept away by the teleportation array. The skin on his face seemed to be cracked, as if a mask had been torn apart. Could it be that the high cultivation but unremarkable bodyguard and lover next to Shiyu is the King of Hell Nangong Yu? Tong Bing gritted his teeth with hatred when he thought of the rumored Nangong Yu, who was unparalleled handsome and had unfathomable cultivation. Chapter 1497. Dogs Hit Plot. Why? As men, I'm no worse than Shiyu. I'm even more dedicated, kind and pure than Shiyu, but Xian Mu and Nangong Yu will only look at Shiyu. And it can only be trampled by this fat pig? Tong Bing took a deep breath, slowly covered up the resentment on his face, and then frowned. He looked at Nangong Xian with a naive look. "Third Master, are you sure you are not mistaken? The person King of Hell Nangong Yu wants to marry is Shiyu? He won't be the Shiyu I'm thinking, right?" Nangong Xian was taken aback. "What? Binger, you know Shiyu? Tell me quickly, which family she is from. I have been in Miluo Continent for so many years, why haven't I heard of any family with the surname Shi?" Tong Bing bit his lips hesitantly. Under Nangong Xian's urging, Tong Bing said, "If the Shiyu that Third Master mentioned is the Shiyu I know, then Shiyu is not a woman, but a man. Are you sure, Third Master? How could King of Hell marry a man?" "What?" Nangong Xian jumped up from the bed. "You said Shiyu is a man? How is this possible?" Tong Bing seemed to be scared by Nangong Xian. His eyes were slightly red, and he said with a sobbing and sad voice, "Third Master, Binger has always been very grateful to you for picking Binger back from the magical beast forest. Otherwise, Binger would have died tragically in that forest long ago. Does Third Master want to know who caused Binger to end up in a miserable state? What Nangong Xian cared most about now was whether Nangong Yu was going to marry a man or a woman, so he wanted to scold. I don't care who harmed you as long as I have enough fun with you. But when he saw Tong Bing looking at him with tears in his eyes, he still restrained himself and said, "Who hurt you?" "It was that Shi Yu." As soon as Tong Bing said this, Nangong Xian was taken aback. "What do you mean by that?" "Third Master, I was originally a student of Miracle Healer Academy. Then, I discovered Shi Yu's misbehavior. He obviously had a lover, but he still flirted with the man in his dormitory, and even he had sex with him. I originally wanted to expose Shi Yu, but Shi Yu found out. When we were training, he set me up with a trap in the magical beast forest. If Third Master didn't help me, I would be dead for nothing." Nangong Xian's face was sluggish. The dog's hit plot completely exceeded his expectations. "I thought Nangong Yu would marry a beautiful lady from a great family, but he is actually going to marry a man? What's more, the man is such a ruthless and promiscuous person." Tong Bing wiped his tears. His body trembled slightly as if he couldn't bear the pain of being framed. He said in a choked voice, "Now that I heard what Third Master's words, I finally know that Shi Yu's lover is King of Hell Nangong Yu. No wonder he wanted to kill me. No wonder he was so afraid of being exposed about his scandals. If His Highness King of Hell knew about his scandal, His Highness King of Hell might not want him." Nangong Xian regained consciousness. Listening to Tong Bing's words, his mung bean eyes became brighter and brighter. "I was still worrying about how to separate Nangong Yu and his fiancée. In the end, the fiancé is not a woman, but a man?" Chapter 1498. Laugh out loud. Haha, our Nangong family is a respectable family. Of course it doesn't matter if we play with men, but who dares to marry a man? Isn't this making the Nangong family a joke in the entire immortal realm? In this way, not to mention that Nangong Hua will not agree to the marriage, even the old lady and everyone in the world will not let Nangong Yu do it. If I release the news that the man is flirtatious and promiscuous again, the marriage will be over without me ruining it. Nangong Xian really got more and more excited as he thought about it. He grabbed Tong Bing's hand and asked, "Is it true?" Tong Bing nodded again and again. "I used to live in the same dormitory as Shi Yu, and no one knows him better than me, so how can I make a mistake? Third Master, Nangong Yu is your nephew. You have saved Binger's life. How can Binger let your cousin be deceived by such a person? Shi Yu, who hooks up with any man. How can such a person be worthy of His Royal Highness King of Hell?" "Okay." Nangong Xian became happier the more he listened. He said, "We will go to Miracle Healer Academy and meet this man whom my nephew chooses." "Pity, Nangong Yu would be fascinated by a man? I heard that he is even 17 years old, which is my favorite type. If I can play for a while, I wonder how wonderful is it. Didn't Tong Bing say that he is promiscuous? I believe that as long as I show my identity as one of the Nangong family, he will obediently lie on me." As long as he thought of playing Nangong Yu's person, his blood was boiling. Tong Bing looked at the greed in Nangong Xian's eyes, and a sharp and crazy light flashed in his eyes. Back then he wanted to devour Shi Yu's spiritual power and talent, but Shi Yu devoured his vitality instead. When he was left to die in the magical beast forest, everyone thought he was dead. A few days later, a beastkin that had just transformed passed by him, thinking that he was a student of Miracle Healer Academy. He had heard that Shi Yu from Miracle Healer Academy was the savior of the Beastkin clan, so he kindly treated him. Tong Bing devoured his Beastkin power and vitality without hesitation at the time of life and death. Although he took advantage of the Beastkin's kindness again, Tong Bing felt that he was still kind and pure. After all, Beastkins and humans were different. Only a vicious person like Shi Yu would be ruthless to him, but Shi Yu treated the Beastkins better. However, Tong Bing was seriously injured. Even after devouring the little Beastkin's vitality, he was still weak. He fled to the edge of the magical beast forest and passed out, but he was finally picked up by Nangong Xian. When Tong Bing woke up, he found that he was being raped by this fat scum, Nangong Xian. He was unwilling, resisted, and even called Brother Xianmu for help, but in the end he still couldn't avoid a miserable fate. He hated Shiyu even more for making him fall into such a fate. So after waking up again, Tong Bing changed his previously resistant attitude. Instead, he flattered Nangong Xin. He wanted to stay alive and become stronger. He must return to Miracle Healer Academy and take revenge on Shiyu and those who bullied him and ruined him in Huang Medical Academy. But now, the opportunity he had been waiting for a long time finally arrived. As long as he thought that Shiyu would be raped by the scum, Nangong Xin, Tong Bing trembled with excitement. He almost couldn't help wanting to laugh out loud. Chapter 1499. Act before informing Nangong Yu was going to marry a man as wife. This news swept through the entire Miluo continent like a hurricane. Who was Nangong Yu? That was the only 20 years old nascent soul stage martial artist in Miluo continent. He was the god of war known to everyone in the world. Who is Shiyu? If we were together years ago, some people might not know her. But now, Shengda Hall's branches had opened all over the world. The best quality pills sold in Shengda Hall and Qingxia sect had attracted many martial artists. Everyone knew that those best quality pills came from the young miracle healer Shiyu. And now, King of Hell Nangong Yu actually wanted to marry Shiyu as his wife? This was a jaw-dropping news. The students and elders of the Miracle Healer Academy even wanted to find out more about it. However, unlike other people who thought Nangong Yu was blind for wanting a man instead of a woman, the people in Huang Medical Branch felt even injustice for Heshi. Lu Zhishi, that black-hearted bitch, is now spreading rumors outside all day long, saying that Shiyu seduces King of Hell Nangong Yu. She even says that Shiyu is willing to be a lowly toy boy. Bah, is there anyone meaner than her in the entire Miluo continent? She is just being jealous. Qian Dezhuang and the others gathered together in Hishi's small dormitory. They cursed angrily. Zhang Yi clenched his fists and said angrily, "Why do people say that Brother Shiyu seduced that King of Hell? It was clear that King of Hell wants Shiyu himself." Yeah. With Shiyu's talent and worth, does he need to seduce others? How many men and women are fond of Shiyu in the Miracle Healer Academy? So what if he is King of Hell Nangong Yu? He is no better than our senior Xianmu. This was said by Shiyu's fan. But I think His Royal Highness King of Hell and Brother Shiyu are a perfect match. As long as they like each other, what does it matter if they are both men? This person believed in love. Heshi pressed her forehead. I'm already annoyed enough. Jin Ziyu looked at Shiyu and ignored the cursing of the people around. He whispered, Shiyu, is this true? If it is King of Hell's unilateral intention, I can find a way for someone to clarify. Heshi frowned. Her mind was also overwhelmed. When she heard Jin Ziyu's words, she thought for a moment and said calmly, if there is only one person who I can live with for the rest of my life, this person can only be Nangong Yu. Jin Ziyu's eyes flickered. He nodded immediately, I understand what you mean. After returning from the magical beast forest, Jin Ziyu did not leave Huang Medical Branch. He began to take charge of the Academy Student Council again. And Lu Zhishi was dismissed directly by Deputy Dean Jiang. Therefore, he had great authority to control the Academy's public opinion. After Jin Ziyu and others left, Heshi took out the inscribed jade slip that Nangong Yu asked Boundless Black Market to send over. She showed an angry and funny helpless expression. There was only one sentence in the inscribed jade slip. It wasn't words, but Nangong Yu's deep and magnetic voice as if it was blended with deep affection. I only want to be with one person in this life. Hold hands until we get old, be husband and wife, love without doubt. Shiyu, I want everyone in the world to know that that person is you. This bastard. Heshi carefully put away the inscribed jade slip and murmured in a low voice, it's clear that he acted before informing me. He doesn't want to give me the opportunity to reject. Chapter 1500. The return of Ouyang Haoshuan Qing Wan, who was standing by the side, saw that everyone had left, then she said in a low voice, "Miss, why did Master say that he wants to marry Shiyu? Everyone in the world knows that Shiyu is a man. If Master says that he wants to marry Nailin, wouldn't it save a lot of trouble? Nailin Heshi is dead." Heshi shook her head. On this point, her thoughts were exactly the same as Nangong Yu's. From now on, Shiyu is my name. Nailin Heshi and Nailin family have never been related to me. You must remember this. Qing Luan was startled. She immediately remembered the previous incident. The man in red clothes raised the Nailin mansion in the blink of an eye. Qing Luan still remembered that she asked Bai Hu afterward how powerful the man in red clothes was. Bai Hu said that even with the power of Master, he couldn't wipe out the entire Nailin mansion without leaving a single brick. Why did such a powerful man in red clothes go to Nailin mansion? He was probably looking for Mississippi. We don't know if he is an enemy or a friend. If it is someone who has ill intention against Miss, then there will be big troubles. Qing Luan immediately nodded with a serious expression. Miss, I understand. Heshi was about to ask her about the specific news that Nangong Yu had spread in Miluo continent, then she suddenly felt something in divine sense and raised her eyebrows. This is the master-servant blood pact of me and Ouyang Haoshuan? Ouyang Haoshuan has come to Miracle Healer City? Heshi thought for a moment, took Qing Luan with him, quickly left Miracle Healer Academy, and came to Shengda Hall in Miracle Healer City. As soon as she entered Shengda Hall, she heard Bai Hu's nervous voice, "My God, how did you end up like this? Who did this to you?" Heshi's heart tightened. As soon as she entered the door, he met Ouyang Haoshuan's calm and smiling eyes. It was just that his current appearance had nothing to do with being calm. His white robe was stained with blood, crumpled, and had several holes. His face was even more frighteningly pale. Heshi could feel his disordered and weak aura without checking his pulse or spiritual power. The most shocking thing was that one of his arms was empty, and a large amount of blood stain on the severed sleeve. It was obviously cut off by someone. Heshi's face turned grim in an instant. She took a step forward and stuffed a medicinal pill into Ouyang Haoshuan's mouth. Her voice was cold and frightening. "Who did this to you?" Heshi had always been extremely protective to her people. She wouldn't allow anyone to hurt them. It applied to Shaoli, Shijia, Ouyang Haoshuan, Gu Lufeng, etc. When the medicinal pill took effect in Ouyang Haoshuan's body, his pale face immediately looked better. His disordered aura also recovered slowly. Ouyang Haoshuan smiled slightly and said, "I chased Feng Lianying and Ye Jinshin all the way to the extreme northern Iceland. The journey was too far. In order to replenish spiritual power, I have almost used up all my medicinal pills." Heshi frowned. "Feng Lianying hurt you?" "Impossible. Feng family people don't have such abilities." She could tell at a glance that Ouyang Haoshuan's current cultivation had broken through the nascent soul stage. Heshi was not surprised at all. After merging Fire Element Spirit Pearl, Ouyang Haoshuan's fire attribute improved at an unimaginable speed. He had already reached the edge of advancement. Coupled with several months of training in the Thousands Years Flame Cave, it was normal for him to advance to the nascent soul stage. Chapter 1501. Back to Academy. Ouyang Haoshuan shook his head with a faint chill in his dark eyes. Feng Lianying and Ye Jinshin are both dead. It wasn't them or the Feng family who hurt me, but Feng Lianying's master. Feng Lianying's master? Heshi suddenly remembered the voodoo goo that she was affected by in the Breaking Spirit Mountain that day. Her pupils shrank suddenly as she said slowly, "Thousand Poison Valley Master?" Nangong Exen walked swaggeringly in the Miracle Healer Academy. He held the slender boy in his arms with one hand while touching the boy's slippery cheek with the other fat hand from time to time. A pair of mung bean eyes kept turning around, with an indescribably excited and wretched expression. This Miracle Healer Academy is indeed a place where young geniuses gather. Walking in the academy and looking around, all I see are handsome young men who give me an unbearable itch. If I wasn't on a mission and there are some powerful forces behind Miracle Healer Academy, I would have raped those young men like a hungry tiger. The young man nestled in Nangong Xian's arms was wearing a snow-white mask with a pattern of vines on it, revealing only a small, delicate mouth. He didn't look weird, but looked rather tender and charming. However, when the Miracle Healer Academy students saw the fat Nangong Xian hugging the young man, they couldn't help but spit and show a disgusted expression. The boy who was held in Nangong Xian's arms was naturally Tong Bing. He originally thought that it would not be easy to mix into the Miracle Healer Academy with Nangong Xian. After all, Miracle Healer Academy had a defensive barrier that rejected outsiders. Nangong Xian smiled with disdain when he heard his worries, just an academy in the lower realm. It's an honor for people of our Nangong family to visit it. How dare a shitty academy not allow me, Nangong Xian, to visit? They aren't afraid of me wiping out their existence? Sure enough, as soon as Nangong Xian showed his identity, no matter how much dissatisfaction Jean Liqing and Deputy Dean Jiang had, they still had to agree to his request and arrange him to the newly renovated Mojing Pavilion. Deputy Dean Jiang endured the anger in his heart, and he repeatedly asked Nangong Xian to stay in the Mojing Pavilion and not to walk around the Miracle Healer Academy at will, so as not to frighten the students. But Nangong Xian ignored Deputy Dean Jiang's words and appeared in the academy swaggeringly. He even hugged the toy boy, Tong Bing. Tong Bing felt the disgusted eyes of the people around him, and resentment surged in his heart. But thinking that she would receive the same treatment in the near future and even be rejected by everyone, Tong Bing forgot about the current discomfort. Third Master, this is Huang Medical Branch. Shi Yu is one of Huang Medical Branch's students. Nangong Xian squinted his eyes. The fat on his face moved. Huang Medical Branch was located in a relatively remote place of Miracle Healer Academy. The spirit was not strong, and the appearance of the young men was worse. He was looking around while frowning. Suddenly, he saw someone that petrified him. In the dormitory area of Huang Medical Branch not far away, a young man wearing a blue and white Miracle Healer Academy uniform was slowly walking toward them. Even though it was the most common college costume, it felt as bright as the moon and as beautiful as jade when worn on the young man's body. The young man's facial features were so exquisite as if they were sculpted by a skillful master. Even the best painter couldn't depict 30% of his charm. Chapter 1502. Peerless Young Man. The young man's skin was as white as snow. Under the sun, it seemed to project a luster, which made people want to touch it with their own hands, but they were afraid that it will melt if they touched. The young man's expression was as cold as ice, but it made people feel even more aloof and pure like snow on the high mountain. It was completely different from the gaudy and vulgar of other ordinary people. Nangong Xian's eyes were dull. While staring straight at the boy who was getting closer and closer, his mouth was drooling. How can there be such a handsome young man in this world? How can there be a young man who is more crystal clear than the legendary fairy? If this young man was mine, if I could trample him under my body. Nangong Xian drooled even more, and his eyes almost burst into flames. If I had to give up other toy boys for him, I would be willing. Seeing the young man getting closer and closer, Nangong Xian thought he was looking for him. The fat on his face suddenly piled up, revealing an obsessed and fawning expression. But the next moment, the young man completely ignored them and walked past them. Wait a minute. Nangong Xian snapped back to his senses, threw Tong Bing away from his arms, and rushed toward the young man. However, before his hand touched the young man, his vision blurred, and he missed the hand. Nangong Xian's obese body staggered a bit, and he looked up with a surprised gaze. The young man had appeared not far away, looking at him with unkind eyes. Seeing the young man's unparalleled handsome face, Nangong Xian drooled again. His mung bean eyes narrowed. They were full of desire and greed. He sneered while sucking his saliva, "Little beauty, as long as you go back with me and become my people, I, Third Master, will promise you a prosperous future. Even if you want to go to heaven, I will also bring you there." Who is this fat pig? He's actually drooling at Shi Yu. Qian Dezhuang, who was walking beside Heshi, was almost disgusted by Nangong Xian's expression and eyes. "Hey, fat pig, Are you tired of living? Who do you think you are? Is Miracle Healer Academy the place you can act shamelessly? Jin Zhu frowned, quickly found someone to block He, and said coldly, "Who are you? Why have I never seen you before? Don't you know that not anyone can break into Miracle Healer Academy?" Nangong Xian couldn't see the beautiful young man, so he woke up immediately, only to notice that a group of people following the beautiful young man were pointing and cursing at him. They even blocked the beautiful young man, which immediately made him furious. "What are you guys? Dare to stand in my way? Do you believe I could kill you all right now? Get lost. I'm talking to the little beauty. Who are you to intervene?" Nangong Xian was about to step forward, then Tong Bing at the side suddenly stepped forward, grabbed him, and whispered in his ear, "Third Master, that person is Shiyu." "Shiyu? Which Shiyu?" Nangong Xian was taken aback for a moment, then his eyes widened suddenly. "Shiyu, the man Nangong Yu is going to marry. The peerless and beautiful young man I want to own is actually Shiyu." Nangong Xian was so shocked that his jaw almost dropped. Now I can understand it. It turns out that Shiyu has such an extraordinary demeanor and appearance. No wonder his icy nephew is so moved that he doesn't even want women. However, it will be troublesome if this beautiful young man is Shiyu. I understand my nephew very well. If I touch his people, won't I be beaten into meat paste by him? Chapter 1503. Daydream. If this beautiful young man is someone from other lower realms, I can just rape him without scrupulous. But if he is Nangong's future wife? Tong Bing saw Nangong Xian's hesitation, and a gloomy light flashed in his eyes. He whispered in Nangong Xian's ear, "Third Master, this lustful Shiyu has already hooked up with many people. If so, His Royal Highness King of Hell knew about this, would he still be willing to marry such a man back? What's more, Third Master, you are from the upper realm. Your status is no worse than King of Hell. In the eyes of Binger, Third Master, you are a very strong person and someone who is worthy of relying on. I believe Shiyu will also look at Third Master differently." Hearing this, Nangong Xian squinted his mung bean eyes again, and most of the hesitation in his mind disappeared immediately. Tong Bing is right. Nangong Yu wants to marry Shiyu, because he didn't know that Shiyu hooks up with other men. If he knows, would Nangong Yu still want such a young man? At that time, wouldn't Shiyu still be mine? Thinking of this, Nangong Xian immediately smiled and walked toward the beautiful young man. Qian Dezhuang blocked Nangong Xian and said with angry eyes, "I warn you. This is not a place where you fat pig can act wild." Before he could finish speaking, Nangong Xian's fat palm swung toward him with great vigor. He muttered, "Trash from the lower realm dares to block my way? Are you courting death?" Qian Dezhuang was caught off guard. He only felt a strong force hit him, and he was thrown to the ground all at once. Looking at this scene, He squinted with a hint of murderous intent in her eyes. Nangong Xian got closer to He. Seeing her exquisite eyes and her snow-white and delicate skin, he felt more thrilled and captivated than when he saw from a distance. He couldn't help drooling and stretched out his hand toward the pretty face that made him fascinated. "Little beauty, let Third Master love you well." Seeing that the indecent pig hand was about to touch the cheek as smooth as white jade, a red and blue light flashed. Nangong Xian only felt a sharp pain in the fingers, then he saw 3 of his chubby fingers were cut off by half. Blood splattered all of a sudden, and the white fingers fell to the ground, seeming to bounce twice. Nangong Xian's whole body was stiff. Until the piercing pain at his fingertips spread through his entire body, he let out a miserable howl like killing a pig. Not far away, He looked at the howling Nangong Xian with a sneer. Her face was white as snow and her demeanor was elegant. The Li Shui sword in her hand floated in the air. The light of the sword was cold. It was not stained with a trace of dust or blood. Nangong Xian howled for a while, withstood the pain, and took out the wound medicine from the storage ring and sprinkled it on. Although the severed finger could not be regenerated, the pain and blood were stopped immediately. Nangong Exen stared at Heshi with mung-bean eyes and said with resentment, "Bitch, don't be shameless. You are just a scumbag who can hook up with anyone. You really think you are noble? Do you know who I'm? I'm Nangong Yu's third uncle, Nangong Exen. You dare to hit me? Do you believe I'll go back and let Nangong Yu take care of you right away? How dare you?" Heshi squinted with a cold and mocking expression. "Oh? Nangong Exen, you are from the Nangong family?" Nangong Exen sneered, "Are you afraid now? Don't forget that you are a man and a low-level martial artist from the lower realm. It's just a daydream trying to marry into my Nangong family." Chapter 1504. Beat him up. If I say a few more bad things about you to my second brother, the current family master of the Nangong family, saying that you seduced Nangong Yu, how long do you think you can live? As Nangong Exen said, he slowly approached Heshi. Seeing her unparalleled beauty, his heart was agitated. He couldn't help showing a lewd and evil smile, and he said in a low voice, "However, if you please me well, maybe I will say a few good words to my second brother when I'm in a good mood. Even if you can't marry into the Nangong family openly, you can at least be my toy boy." Heshi showed a leisure smile. This smile instantly diluted the original glamour on her face. The already beautiful face became more dazzling than the sun. Looking at this smile, Nangong Exen was in a trance. He only had one thought. No wonder some people say that a smile can captivate a city, a smile can captivate a country. It turns out that there is really such a beauty in this world. However, before Nangong Exen stretched out his hand, the smile on Hishi's face had already turned into a cold chill. Her slender figure soared into the air, and she kicked Nangong Exen hard in the chest. At the critical moment, Nangong Exen only remembered to protect himself with spiritual power. However, his fat body was still kicked far away. His internal organ and blood in the body were tumbling. Nangong Exen felt dizzy for a while, and he couldn't move for a long time. Heshi sneered, "It turns out that the people of the Nangong family are nothing more than that. Ziyu, since he asks for it himself, we don't have to be polite." A smile appeared in Jin Ziyu's eyes, and he waved to the people behind him. "Beat him up." Nangong Exen just wanted to get up and use spiritual power to let himself recover from the dizziness, but he was suddenly surrounded by a group of people. A storm of punches and kicks followed. Nangong Exen screamed in pain and rolled around. He wanted to release the spirit pressure of his nascent soul stage several times and wanted to cast his magic weapons. However, whenever his spiritual power was running in Dantian, there would be a more powerful and pure spirit pressure forcing back his spiritual power, dissipating the spiritual power that he condensed. Heshi sneered and looked at Nangong Exen with a swollen face. Seeing that he wanted to resist, she directly launched a spiritual power at him. "Shiyu, how can you let someone humiliate Third Master like this? Don't you have any sense of shame?" A slightly hoarse voice came from the side. Heshi turned around and saw a young man wearing a mask. Heshi squinted her eyes. Although the young man's voice was unfamiliar, this figure gave her a familiar feeling. Before she could speak, Zhang Yi on the side had already snorted and said, "What are you? Even you're not ashamed of being a toy boy, why should Brother Shiyu be ashamed?" Tong Bing glanced at Heshi with resentful eyes. When I was in the magical beast forest, Shiyu's cultivation was clearly at the foundation establishment stage. Even if he advances, he would be at the meridian stage at best. But now, not only has she advanced to the gold core stage, but she can also completely suppress Nangong Exen at the nascent soul stage. But why can Shiyu not only seduce men, but he can also improve his cultivation so quickly? Why does God favor this man so much? Tong Bing hated Shiyu to the extreme, but he quickly covered up his emotions and looked angry. "Shiyu, I have already heard from Third Master about you and Nangong Yu. Chapter 1505. His pleasured people in the Nangong family don't want to recognize you at all. Haven't you thought that if Nangong Yu marries a man like you, he will be laughed at by the world and even expelled from the family? Tong Bing said angrily. Heshi raised her eyebrows and said with a sneer, the one who married me is Nangong Yu, not the Nangong family. What does it have to do with people from the Nangong family? What does it have to do with you, Nangong Xian's toy boy? You? Tong Bing's face under the mask twisted for a while. He said hatefully, Shiyu, do you think that if you marry into the King of Hell Mansion, you will really be able to ascend to the upper realm? You are simply dreaming. As long as the Nangong family doesn't accept you, you are nothing. What's the difference between you and a toy boy like me? Hushi picked out her ears, squinted at him contemptuously, and sneered, Excuse me, who said I'm going to marry into King of Hell Mansion? Maybe Nangong you will marry into my Shengda Hall? As soon as Heshi said this, everyone present burst into commotion instantly. Qian Dezhuang and the others laughed out loud. That's right, who is our Shiyu? He is a genius that Miracle Healer Academy has never seen since its establishment. Those who want to marry our Shiyu can line up from the city gate of Miracle Healer City to the other end. It is King of Hell Nangong Yu's honor to marry Shiyu. Jin Zhu also had a smile on his face. He waved his hand to make them stop beating Nangong Exen and smiled faintly. With the talent and appearance of King of Hell Nangong Yu, he is worthy of our Shiyu. Shiyu's die-hard fans at Huang Medical Branch took it for granted. However, the people from other branches went crazy after hearing that. My God? Let Nangong Yu marry into Shengda Hall, marry to Shiyu? What does this mean? Could it be that Nangong Yu is going to wear a phoenix coronet and official robes and sitting in a bride's sedan when marrying into Shengda Hall? Everyone's faces were distorted. This picture was so beautiful that people couldn't imagine it. Qing Wan, who was following behind Heshi, even twitched her mouth. Qing Wan had the same worry as Qing Long when she received news that her master was going to spread the news of his marriage with Miss to the entire Miluo continent. No one knows better than us that Master has not yet successfully proposed to Mississippi Master is so bold. If Miss gets angry, the consequences will be very serious. But I never expected that it will be such a consequence. Among the people in the surrounding, some had distorted faces, some were refraining themselves from laughing, and some were fantasizing. Qing Wan felt that her master's fame had been ruined in Miracle Healer Academy. When Nangong Exen got up from the ground, his already fat head was swollen like a pig's head. His clothes were messed up, his hair was messy, and his nose was bleeding. He looked even worse than a beggar. Shiyu great, just you wait. Since you want to take it the hard way, don't blame me for being rude. I'm going to inform my second brother and my mother right now what kind of slutty man Nangong Yu is going to marry. Let me tell you, what Nangong Yu listens to most is my mother's words. As long as my mother doesn't accept you, just wait to be rejected by Nangong Yu. You damn bastard. As soon as he finished cursing, Nangong Exen saw Hushi slowly raise the Li Shuai sword. He screamed and ran away in a panic. He didn't care about cursing anymore, and he didn't even bring Tong Bing with him. Chapter 1506. Changes in Kai Yu. Tong Bing was stunned for a moment. The sinister and resentful thoughts turned one by one in his mind, then he quickly followed Nangong Exen. Watching Tong Bing leave, Hushi slowly squinted her eyes. This back view is really indescribably familiar. Outside Spirit Extinct Valley. Zhang Chong anxiously walked around outside the barrier, checking the barrier from time to time for any movement. Dean Huang said impatiently, Zhang Chong, can you stop turning around? I'm already dizzy because of you before Kai Yu comes out. Zhang Chong scratched his head in embarrassment, trying to calm himself down. At this time, he and Dean Huang were waiting outside the Spirit Extinct Valley, waiting for Kai Yu to come out. For Zhang Chong, Kai Yu was his benefactor, the closest person in Miracle Healer Academy except his younger brother. Just like his older brother. He didn't feel regret when he exposed Kai Yu's framing of Shiyu, but he was always full of guilt for Kai Yu who was thrown into Spirit Extinct Valley. Now, Lu Zhishi's true face was revealed. Kai Yu could finally be released. How could he not be excited? While waiting anxiously, suddenly, the barrier in front of him fluctuated. A figure slowly walked out of the barrier. Zhang Chong raised his head suddenly. His face was full of surprise and nervousness. However, when he saw the person coming, his expression suddenly froze, then his eyes slowly turned red. His expression was full of guilt and distress. The person who came out was naturally Caillou. Spirit Extinct Valley had a special enchantment. Except for those with Dean's permission, no one was allowed to go through the barrier for his entire lifetime. However, when Zhang Chong saw the person at first glance, he almost didn't recognize that it was Caillou. Because Caillou has changed too much. The original gentle temperament like a nobleman disappeared without a trace, replaced by indifference and gloom emanating from the inside out. His clothes were already in tatters, and his upper body was only wrapped in a shabby white singlet. His chest was bare, revealing a lot of horrific scars. There was no spiritual power in the Spirit Extinct Valley, so the wounds couldn't heal completely. Many scars would naturally be left over time. Brother Kai. Zhang Chonghong rushed over with red eyes and was about to hug Caillou. However, as soon as he touched Caillou's body, he was startled. He stared blankly at Caillou's arms. Although his two hands were still there, they seemed to be dry and shriveled. Looking closer, he could only feel two dead branches wrapped in the empty sleeves. Brother Kai, your hands? Caillou's expression was indifferent, as if it wasn't his hands that turned into dry branches. Oh, there are several demon slaughtering lands in Spirit Extinct Valley. I accidentally fell into one of them, then my hands withered. The voice that came out was hoarse and indifferent, as if what he was talking about was not his life or death, but a trivial matter. Zhang Chong's tears welled up all at once. He wanted to ask who was so cruel to actually push Caillou in, but thinking of the darkness and horror in Spirit Extinct Valley, he couldn't ask this question again. The people inside were all lunatics. They would even eat human flesh in order to survive. Dean Huang looked at Caillou's skinny hand and felt uncomfortable. He knew about the demon slaughtering land. The evil aura would devour human flesh and spiritual power. Caillou was lucky to just lose two hands after falling into the demon slaughtering land. However, the hands that had been devoured were equivalent to useless. Not to mention refining tools, even the usual cultivation was a problem. Chapter 1507. Feeling pity, thinking that Caillou, who was talent in forging, no longer had the hope, Dean Huang felt depressed for a while. If I had known earlier, I should have been more determined and not let Caillou take the blame for Lu Jishi and be sent to Spirit Extinct Valley. Dean Huang took a step forward, patted Caillou's shoulder, and said in a hoarse voice, "It's good that you are out. I will find a way to solve your problem. If you don't object, you can come to my Hong medical branch. Even if you can't forge, you can also study runes with me. Besides, maybe there is a way to heal your hands. Right?" Zhang Chong seemed to have thought of something, jumped up, grabbed Caillou, and said excitedly, "Let's go find Shiyu. He has such superb medical skills. He must be able to cure you. Isn't it just demon slaughtering land? Isn't it just your hands withering? Shiyu can even pull back people who are 1 foot stepping into hell." As Zhang Chong spoke, he was about to drag Caillou to the direction of Huang medical branch. However, after a few drags, Caillou didn't even move a step. Zhang Chong said nervously, "Brother Kai, are you afraid that Shiyu will still blame you? Don't worry, Shiyu is a good person. As long as you are willing to admit your mistakes sincerely, Shiyu will definitely be willing to treat you." Thinking of that amazingly talented young man, Caillou showed a complicated and guilty expression. He slowly shook his head. "No, now, I don't want to see Shiyu yet. The dirty things I did to frame Shiyu cannot be erased by just saying that I'm manipulated by others. Having done such shameless things before, how can I have the face to let Shiyu treat me now?" Zhang Chong held Caillou's hand tightly and said in a sobbing tone, "Brother Kai, do you still blame me for exposing you? If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't be sent to Spirit Extinct Valley, and you wouldn't end up as such now." Caillou reached out and lightly pressed Zhang Chong's shoulder, interrupting his words. He showed a cold smile as he said, Zhang Chong, you don't have to feel guilty. I should thank you instead. If it weren't for you, I might still be used like a fool. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't see clearly how stupid I was before. When the three were talking, they suddenly heard Lu Zhishi's excited and affectionate voice not far away. Caillou, Caillou. It's really you. You finally came out. I'm so worried about you. When they looked over, Lu Zhishi, wearing a low-cut white dress with snow gauze, was walking gracefully toward them. Her skin seemed to be white and transparent under the sun, and there were still slight tear stains on her face, which made people feel pity for her. Beside her were a few students from 4 upper courtyards. Watching Lu Zhishi cry, their eyes were full of fascination and pity. It seemed that as long as it could make her not cry, they were willing to take off the stars in the sky. If Heshi was here at this time, she would have found that the group of boys surrounding Lu Zhishi had deepened their fascination with Lu Zhishi by several times. Now they basically obeyed the words of Lu Zhishi. When Caillou saw the woman walking toward him with tears, his pupils constricted suddenly. His originally calm mood seemed to set off monstrous waves. When Caillou was exiled to the Spirit Extinct Valley, Caillou still hoped that Lu Zhishi would remember his affection for her and come to save him. But what waited in the end was a merciless murder. The person who pushed him into demon slaughtering land looked at him with a mocking face and told him condescendingly that Lu Zhishi didn't want him to live, so he had to die. Chapter 1508, Easy to be deceived. Caillou struggled desperately in demon slaughtering land, gave up both arms, swallowed the green bead that Dean Huang had given him, and finally escaped from danger. At that time, he still didn't believe that Lu Zhishi would be so ruthless to him. However, a few days later, he met the person who pushed him into demon slaughtering land again in Spirit Extinct Valley. The killer sent by Lu Zhishi couldn't leave Spirit Extinct Valley because he was holding a fake map. The map was changed by Xiao Li, so he yelled at Lu Zhishi. Caillou subdued him, tortured him to extract a confession, and finally learned all the truth about the matter. Lu Zhishi was really so ruthless and vicious that not only made him take the blame, but she even wanted to silence him forever. This is the woman I had loved deeply for 3 years and is willing to give everything for her. As soon as Zhang Chong saw Lu Zhishi, his expression immediately turned cold. He said with disgust, "What are you doing here? Do you want to harm Brother Kai even more?" Zhang Chong's unceremonious tone made Lu Zhishi's followers look angry. But Lu Zhishi stopped them from retorting. She looked at Caillou with tears in her eyes. "Caillou, are you blaming me too? Do you also think just like them that I hurt you?" Zhang Chong's face was full of anger, and he wanted to say something, but he was stopped by Caillou. Caillou walked slowly toward Lu Zhishi. Lu Zhishi felt proud for a moment. Seeing Caillou's wasted hands and his regressed cultivation, contempt appeared in her eyes again. If it was before, she wouldn't pay attention to a useless person like Caillou. But now that the Academy Student Council was firmly controlled by Jin Xiu, her prestige in the Academy was almost certainly gone. Caillou urgently needed the influence that Caillou once served as an officer of the Academy Student Council to help her handle affairs. Fortunately, Caillou was just a dog that crawled completely under her feet, very easy to be deceived. As long as she hooked her fingers, he would obediently come over. However, unexpectedly, Caillou walked past her without even looking at her. Lu Zhishi felt a burst of resentment, and she quickly turned around and grabbed Caillou's sleeve. She clearly felt that when her hand touched Caillou, Caillou's whole body was stiff. His eyes were closed tightly to avoid excitement and emotions overflowed. Lu Zhishi knew right away that Caillou still had feelings for her, and she felt even more proud. She put up an aggrieved and sad expression on his face. "Caillou, you don't even know how many ways I tried to save you after you were imprisoned in Spirit Extinct Valley. But Shiyu ruined all my attempts. Because you framed Shiyu, so he wants to put you to death. Seeing you like this now, you don't know how painful I'm." When Zhang Chong heard that she had framed Shiyu, he became furious immediately. He yelled at Lu Zhishi, "You black-hearted woman, You are the one who framed Brother Kai. Now you actually put the blame on Shiyu. How vicious can you be? Zhang Chong, keep your mouth clean. Hearing that Zhang Chong insulted Lu Jishi, those loyalists who had been fascinated by Lu Jishi's charm were outrageous. Don't think that Jishi is kind-hearted, so you can humiliate her casually. Say one more sentence and don't blame me for being rude. Zhang Chong really didn't expect that after the real face of this bitch was exposed, someone would be deceived by her. He was about to attack, but he was stopped by Kai Yu. Chapter 1509. Mind-controlling pill. Kai Yu looked at Lu Jishi with a painful face and said, I don't blame you, but with my current state, I'm no longer worthy of standing by your side. Lu Jishi laughed wildly in her heart after hearing that. At the same time, she despised Kai Yu, who looked like a waste to the extreme. But her face was still full of sincerity. She even stepped forward to hold Kai Yu's withered hands. Kai Yu, you are so kind. I knew you will not blame me. However, because Miracle Healer Academy is now under the influence of Shiyu, I'm no longer the president of the Academy Student Council. Saying that, Lu Jishi showed a lonely and sad look. Kai Yu, you will still stand by my side and help me like before, won't you? A deep coldness flashed in Kai Yu's eyes, but he said in a hoarse voice, of course. When Zhang Chong heard this, he was anxious. Brother Kai, are you crazy? This woman has put you into such a miserable state, yet you still trust her and go back to help her? She is clearly using you. Don't be fooled by her. When Lu Jishi heard the words, tears came to her eyes immediately. She murmured softly, I know you all believe in Shiyu now. Zhang Chong, I don't blame you for betraying me and standing by Shiyu's side, but how can you say that I frame Kai Yu? Kai Yu, I specially obtained this precious muscle regen pill from my father. Although it cannot restore your cultivation and spells, your hands can recover as before. I'm willing to do so many things for you, how could I frame you? The men beside Lu Jishi immediately glared at Zhang Chong. If it was before, they would still be afraid that Zhang Chong was Shiyu's person and dare not say too much, but now they had been bewitched by Lu Jishi and her voodoo temptation, obeying her command completely. Several people even drew their long swords and were about to attack Zhang Chong. The muscle regen pill was indeed very useful. As soon as he took it, his withered hands regained senses. Kai Yu gritted his teeth and pushed Zhang Chong away with a cold face. Don't talk anymore. I went back with Jishi on my own accord. I don't need to meddle in my matter. You should go back quickly. Zhang Chong was stunned for a moment. He murmured with widened eyes, Kai Yu, what the mind-controlling pill did this woman feed you? Dean Huang also lowered his face and looked at Kai Yu coldly. Kai Yu, you'd better think clearly. If you return to Hong Medical Branch with me now, I will still treat you as my favorite disciple. One day, you will make some achievements in forging. But before he finished speaking, Lu Jishi sneered. Dean Huang doesn't have to worry. With the strength of our Doctors Association, I will arrange a better mentor for Kai Yu. Yeah, how can a mere Hong Medical Branch be compared with our Pioneer Branch and Doctors Association? A burst of laughter and sarcasm made Dean Huang's face turn green and pale. Because of Lu Shuyang and the Doctors Association's backing, now Lu Jishi and her group were becoming more and more arrogant. They didn't even put the elders in their eyes. But because of Lu Shuyang, they could only let Lu Jishi act arrogantly. Kai Yu closed his eyes, turned around, and bowed deeply to Dean Huang. Thank you, Dean Huang, for your concern, but I still decided to stay at the Pioneer Branch and stay with Jishi. A smug smile appeared on Lu Jishi's face. Dean Huang was full of disappointment. He shook his head and said, It's your choice. Chapter 1510. Angry after speaking, he left without taking another glance at Kai Yu. Zhang Chong was even more filled with resentment. He felt guilty toward Kai Yu before, but now he hated Kai Yu's stupid betrayal. In the end, he didn't say anything, just glanced at Lu Jishi and Kai Yu with a sneer, and left. Looking at the angry backs of the two, Caillou tightly clenched his fists by his side, then he closed his eyelids, hiding all the emotions in his eyes. When he was facing Lu Jishi, there was only pure admiration and flattery on his face, as if he was exactly the same as those men around Lu Jishi who were obsessed with her. Siam continent, Nangong family's courtyard. Yun Jingxue, dressed in red, pinched the inscribed jade slip she had just obtained in his hand with humiliation and anger on her face. She smashed the things on the table to the ground. "Miss, what's wrong? Why are you so angry?" The maid Lu Yun asked quickly. Yun Jingxue gritted her teeth and said, "Nangong Yu, how dares he do that? It's his honor that I'm willing to marry him. If he doesn't accept it, never mind, but he even announces to the entire Miluo continent that he wants to marry another woman as his wife. Such a blatant humiliation. How could I face people in Siam continent in the future? What? Young master of the Nangong family really dares to do this?" Lu Yun frowned. "Miss, could it be you who made a mistake? Or has he never seen you in person? My Miss talent and cultivation may not be the best in the Siam continent, but she is definitely one of the best in terms of appearance. When the disciples from ordinary families see Miss, their legs go limp. How can he be willing to refuse?" Speaking of this, Yun Jingxue became even more angry. This Nangong Yu clearly saw my true face in the Nebula Du mirror, yet he completely ignored me like I didn't exist. On the contrary, when Yun Jingxue saw Nangong Yu's perfect and handsome face, her heart beat nonstop. Her original reluctance turned into anticipation. Yun Jingxue said with a twisted face, "Look at the news in the inscribed jade slip yourself. Nangong Yu announced in Miluo continent that he is about to be engaged to Shiyu, a student of Miracle Healer Academy. They will be married immediately after the engagement. He knew I'm engaged to him. Isn't he humiliating me by this? Lowlife. He really is a trash from the lower realm just like his father." Back then, Nangong Outyin went crazy because the trash of the Yun family, Yun Charan, and now his son's taste is just as bad. Yun Jingxue was really mad. Since she advanced to the gold core stage and appeared in the Siam continent, she had always been sought after. How could she be reconciled to being slapped in the face mercilessly by a person from the lower realm? Lu Yun read the inscribed jade slip, but she immediately frowned. Who is this Shiyu? Has Miss sent someone to investigate? Could it be that Nangong Yu is crazy or stupid? He didn't marry the talented girl from the upper realm, but he chooses a trash from the lower realm. I don't care what she is. Yun Jingxue said viciously with fire in her eyes. Nangong Yu, he dares to humiliate me like this. I will definitely make him pay a heavy price. Miss, you can't. Lu Yun's face darkened. She held Yun Jingshue's hand and said slowly, Miss, have you forgotten Valley Master's order? You must marry Nangong Yu. As soon as the Valley Master was mentioned, the anger on Yun Jingshue's face froze, then her expression turned into fear. She bit her lip and said, You also saw that it was Nangong Yu who refused to marry me. Valley Master? Valley won't let me pursue him instead, right? Chapter 15:11. Crazy Lu Yun blinked, and a deep light flashed from her eyes. Did you forget, miss? You still have the old lady on your side. Nangong Yu listens to the old lady's words the most. As long as you please the old lady well, tell her your deep affection for Nangong Yu, and analyze the pros and cons of marrying a lowly person, I believe the old lady must understand who is the best candidate for the granddaughter-in-law of the Nangong family. Yun Jingxue rolled her eyes and revealed a sneer. Lu Yun, change my clothes right away. I'm going to see the old lady. At the same time, Nangong Hua also received news about Nangong Yu's marriage from the lower realm. But he received not only the news that Nangong Yu was going to marry Shiyu, but also a secret letter from Nangong Xian. Originally, after hearing that Nangong Yu dared to disobey him and directly announce the marriage news, Nangong Hua was still full of anger, but when he saw the secret letter that Nangong Xian asked Zheng Luo to send, he looked astonished, then he laughed frantically. Is what third brother said true? Nangong Hua looked at Jing Luo with shining eyes. My good nephew, is he really crazy now? He actually wants to marry a man as his wife. A mocking smile flashed across Jing Luo's eyes. He nodded meaningfully and said, I saw Shiyu at Miracle Healer Academy with my own eyes. He is really a beautiful young man with an extraordinary demeanor. When the third master saw him, he couldn't even move. I think, master, you must have been seduced in the same way. Haha, Nangong Hua laughed again, feeling that the depression in his heart all the years had disappeared at this moment. Nangong Outyin, I didn't expect you'd have such a day. So what if you are talented, brave and invincible? The son you gave birth to is gay. It's fine to hook up with a toy boy, but he even wants to marry a man. I wonder how you will feel after knowing that you Nangong Outyin will have no offspring. After Nangong Hua had a good laugh for a while, Zheng Luo reminded, Patriarch, don't forget. We have an agreement with the master of Thousand Poison Valley. No matter what, we still have to marry Miss Yun to Nangong Yu. Nangong Hua suppressed his smile and said with a sinister smile, You're right. I don't care if he loves men or not, but he must marry Yun Jingxue as his wife. Otherwise, our Nangong family will be in a difficult situation. I didn't know how to stop him from marrying a person from the lower realm before, but now I don't have to worry about it. It's fine for a man to play around. I don't believe that he can really marry a man. Even if I agree, my old mother will not agree. Thinking of this, Nangong Hua also brought news and evidence to old lady Nangong's room. When Nangong Hua rushed to the door of the old woman's room, he heard Yun Jingshue's weeping sound from inside the room. Old lady, ever since I found out about the engagement with cousin Yu, I have been thinking for brother Yu and waiting for brother Yu to marry Jingxue. Who in Siam continent doesn't know that I'm the future granddaughter-in-law of the Nangong family? But who knows what I got was the news that brother Yu is going to marry another woman. Whoa, old lady, how can Jingxue still stay in Siam continent after being abandoned like this? I might as well die. Upon hearing this, Nangong Hua immediately opened the door and went in. He saw old lady Nangong look at Yun Jingxue with distress. She kept comforting her. Jingxu, maybe there is some misunderstanding about this matter. Why didn't you discuss it with me before he decides to marry a woman from the lower realm? Chapter 15:12. Absurd, what woman? Nangong Hua interrupted old lady Nangong all of a sudden, and he sneered, Mother, you made a mistake. The person Nangong Yu wants to marry is not a woman, but a real man. The toy boy. What? Two exclamations sounded in unison. Yun Jingxue couldn't believe her ears. What is Nangong Hua saying? What does it mean that he is not marrying a woman, but a real man? Nangong Yu is going to marry a man? Is he crazy? Old lady Nangong also had a frosty face, and she said coldly, Don't talk nonsense, Yuer will have a limit to his nonsense. How could he marry a man as his wife? Nangong Hua knew that they didn't believe it, and he immediately took out a picture scroll with a sneer. This was painted by Zheng Luo just based on his impression. Zheng Luo not only had superb strength, but he was also a very skilled painter. The picture scroll was spread out. What was painted on it was a handsome young man. Just looking at his exquisite facial features and awe-inspiring temperament, he was even more than Yun Jingxue. According to Zheng Luo, his paintings haven't yet depicted 50% of his beauty. However, no matter how beautiful he was still a man. Old lady Nangong trembled and said, This is the person Yuer is going to marry? Nangong Hua smiled gloatingly. I heard that everyone in Miluo continent knows about it now. This kid named Shiyu is quite famous. Now people in the lower realm are laughing at Nangong Yu for marrying a man as his wife. Absurd. Old lady Nangong slapped the table hard. The teacups on the table crackled and jumped, making a piercing knocking sound. Old lady Nangong's face was full of anger. She gritted her teeth. What is Yuer thinking? He is the eldest son of our Nangong family, and he is so outstanding. How can he marry a man as his wife? I absolutely disagree. Yun Jingxue and Lu Yun looked at each other. They both saw the mocking smile in each other's eyes. Yun Jingxue took old lady Nangong's hand and said sadly, "Old lady, the most urgent task now is to prevent cousin Yu from marrying a man. Cousin Yu listens to old lady Nangong the most. I believe you can dissuade him. Cousin Yu will definitely listen. What's more, how could cousin Yu really like a man? It must be cousin Yu who is seduced by this shameless fox. As long as we expose the true face of that shameless toy boy, cousin Yu will definitely change his mind." Yes. Nangong Hua also smiled at the right time. Yuer is just too young and impulsive. When he sees someone who is pretty, he doesn't care whether the person is male or female. In my opinion, Jingxue doesn't look any worse than that toy boy at all. I believe that Yuer will be attracted by Jingxue if he sees her. Old lady Nangong also showed a smile on her face, patted Yun Jingxue's hand, and said, "Yes, Jingxue, don't worry. You are the only daughter-in-law of our Nangong family. We will go to Miluo continent now, and I will definitely make Yuer marry you as soon as possible." Old lady, Yun Jingxue called out affectionately, nestling in old lady Nangong's arms. Her face flushed, but a fierce dark light flashed in her eyes. "Nangong Yu, this bastard wants a man and doesn't want me. He let me Yun Jingxue become the laughing stock of the Siam continent, and I still have to deliver myself to him. That bitch Shiyu too. He just can't do anything else than a toy boy. I will remember the humiliation these two people gave me. I will definitely pay it back." Chapter 1513. I Want to Be Dowry. Nangong Hua also showed a smile. As long as Nangong Yu could marry Yun Jingxue. No, even if he doesn't marry, as long as I find a way to make Nangong Yu and Yun Jingxue have a relationship, I can get the benefits promised by Lu Wushuang. Although the Valley Master of Thousand Poison Valley is nothing, there is Lu family behind Lu Wushuang. As long as we can affiliate with the big Lu family, our Nangong family will soon prosper. If one asked, what was the most widely circulated event in Miluo continent during this period, all the martial artists would tell him that King of Hell Nangong Yu was getting married to Shengda Hall's young master Shiyu. Because of this news, the entire continent was almost boiling. Not to mention that this shocking marriage was the most talked about every day in Jinling Kingdom. Even Nangong Yu's admirers protested angrily every day in Shengda Hall. If Nangong Yu married a woman, maybe they would give up after being unwilling. But Nangong Yu actually wanted to marry a man. How could they be reconciled? They actually lost to a man? However, after a while, another version of the news spread from Miracle Healer City. I heard that it's not Shiyu marrying into the King of Hell Mansion, but King of Hell Nangong Yu is going to marry into Shengda Hall. Just kidding, that's King of Hell Nangong Yu, Miluo continent's #1 powerhouse. How could King of Hell marry him? Tisuchi, you are saying like Shiyu is not worthy? The best quality pills produced by Shengda Hall are all provided by Shiyu. Don't buy it if you are good. What's more, I heard that Shiyu has advanced from the foundation establishment stage to the gold core stage in just 1 year. Your Highness King of Hell wasn't that powerful back then, was he? There was an uproar in the main cities, but the direction of the opposition and quarrel seemed totally deviated. There was even a gamble on boundless black market, betting on who would marry to who. In King of Hell Mansion, several of Nangong Yu's subordinates were ashen-faced. Wu Go even said angrily, "How can these people slander the reputation of master like this?" Qin Long put his hand on his forehead and thought secretly, "I knew master's announcement of the marriage news without asking will have bad results, but I didn't expect such a weird development." Nangong Yu, who was sitting at the top, shook his head lightly. The smile on his face was full of helplessness and indulgence. Wu Xen said cautiously, "Master, do you need us to clarify the rumors?" Nangong Yu pursed his lips and said with a smile, "No, people in the world can say whatever they want, so what does it matter to me? If Xia really wants me to marry her, then why not?" Wu Chen and Wu Go, who didn't know the truth, froze when they heard the words. The corners of Wu Xian and Qing Long's mouths twitched. "Master, you know that Miss Shiyu is a girl." Please stop playing with Miluo continent like this. Everyone is innocent. Only Wu Yu, a foodie, immediately jumped up excitedly when he heard it. Master, I want to be the dowry. Nangong Yu kicked him away and said with a faint smile, you guys are starting to prepare for the wedding. Remember to discuss with Gu Lufeng and Shi Jia about the bride price and wedding banquet. I'll go to Miracle Healer Academy first. However, Heshi, who was at the eye of the storm, had always been calm. She ate and slept as usual. Every day she digested the materials in the Miracle Healer Academy library bit by bit. If she had any questions, she would ask the elders. Although many students in the school feel ashamed that Shi Yu, a man, wanted to marry King of Hell Nangong Yu, who was also a man, but no one was stupid enough to be the unlucky one. Chapter 15-14. Confused, even Lu Jishi, who hated Heshi the most, once again sneered and slandered at Heshi, then she was severely punished by Heshi. Since then she no longer dared to act presumptuously in public. Miracle Healer Academy had always respected the strength. Even after Zheng Shoyue heard that Shi Yu would not like girls, he persuaded her earnestly, you must let Nangong Yu marry to you. How can I allow my best disciple to be snatched away so easily? This made Heshi really dumbfounded. When she said she would marry Nangong Yu back that day, she really just said it casually, purely to shut the mouth of Nangong Xin and his toy boy. Unexpectedly, under the public opinion created by Jin Ziyu and Wei Qingyuan, the whole Miluo continent was now discussing her marriage with Nangong Yu. Thinking of Nangong Yu's expression after hearing this argument, Heshi couldn't help laughing. By the time she got back to the dormitory, it was already dark. Xian Mu was already lying quietly on the bed, seemingly asleep. When Heshi was about to get into bed, Xian Mu sat up on the bed and looked at him solemnly. The light in his eyes was flickering. Heshi touched her face, wondering, what's wrong? Is there something on my face? I heard the news about you and Nangong Yu. Cough. Heshi almost choked on her own saliva. I'm not surprised if anyone gossips, but this is Xian Mu, the high-cold Xian Mu who has never bothered about others' matters. Is he trying to get the news from me? Heshi took out a glass of diluted spirit spring water from the void, took a sip to suppress her shock, and said awkwardly, oh. Xian Mu frowned. He's a man, not suitable for you. The corner of Heshi's mouth twitched. As expected, one lie will be followed by countless lies. How should I answer? Say that I just like men? Or women are not suitable for me? Or else just say that I'm gay? Wait, I'm obviously a woman. Heshi felt confused. Xian Mu jumped off the bed, slowly approached Heshi, and stared at her deeply. Have you decided on this person? You won't regret it? Heshi really wanted to say, you are being too controlling. But Xian Mu's expression was too serious that she couldn't just casually brush him off. She swallowed, then she nodded. From the moment I choose Nangong Yu, I will not regret it. I will not give myself a chance to regret it. Xian Mu was slightly taken aback. His expression became distant and dazed. After a long time, he took a step back. His expression returned to his usual indifference. Okay, I understand. Before Heshi could speak, Xian Mu said again, congratulations. Thank you. Heshi continued to answer awkwardly. Why is Xian Mu so strange today? Qing Wan just came back with Heshi's crystal stone for this month. As soon as she entered the door and saw Xian Mu leaning so close to her princess, she burst into anger. Hey, what are you doing? Stay away from our young master. Xian Mu ignored Qing Wan, returned to his bed, and said slowly with a cold voice, be careful of the people of Nangong family. They are now the pawns of the Lu family. The Lu family? Heshi frowned. Suddenly, she remembered Ouyang Haoshuan's investigation results. The valley master of the Thousand Poison Valley was called Lu Wushuang. Chapter 15-15, Sympathy Miracle Healer Academy, Mojing Pavilion. Nangong Exen was pressing on Tong Bing's naked body to vent his anger. The gasping, moaning and crying sound reverberated in the room from time to time. Nangong Exen pressed Tong Bing, but that unparalleled face seemed to appear in front of her eyes. The lust in his eyes turned into blazing flames. That beautiful young man, if he is the one under me, if I can get him. Thinking of how cold and ruthless she was when he beat him, Nangong Exen was resentful and unwilling. But at the same time, his heart became more burning and longing, almost as if he was going crazy to get this person. When Nangong Exen was excited, he grabbed Tong Bing's hair and tortured the boy under him ruthlessly. Even though Tong Bing was in so much pain that he kept begging for mercy, and his body was covered with bruises, Nangong Exen didn't care. Instead, he tortured Tong Bing more and more cruelly. After a long time, Nangong Exen finally stopped. Suddenly, a guard's anxious voice came from the door. "Master, someone is here." Nangong Exen frowned. He was about to scold the guard for disturbing him. The closed door was knocked open with a bang. The disgusting smell made the person who barged in frown in disgust. Nangong Exen wanted to yell at him, but when he saw the person clearly, he was so frightened that he jumped off the bed. He didn't even have time to put on his clothes. The person standing at the door turned out to be his second brother, Nangong Hua, the master of the Nangong family. Standing behind Nangong Hua was his mother, the old lady of the Nangong family, and Yun Jingxue, who was supporting her. Nangong Hua looked at his younger brother, who was hurriedly grabbing his clothes to cover up his fat and unsightly body, and the disgust in his eyes was even greater. "Get dressed and get out." As he spoke, he glanced at Tong Bing, who was covered in bruises on the bed, as if looking at a trash. Nangong Exen dared to be arrogant to others, but he didn't dare to do the same in front of his second brother. As soon as Nangong Hua left, he quickly put on his clothes and hurriedly followed. Tong Bing waited for Nangong Exen to go out before he frowned, got up and used spiritual power to heal his body. But his spiritual power was weak. The wounds on his body tortured by Nangong Exen were too deep. It was so painful that he couldn't stop taking quick breaths. The guard felt pity seeing his weak body and childish face. He couldn't help but stepped forward and said, "You can't do this. I have some wound medicine here." As he spoke, he took the wound medicine from his storage bag and handed it over. Tears fell from Tong Bing's eyes. His face was indescribably pitiful and pathetic. He begged in a hoarse voice, "My wounds hurt so much. Can you please use spiritual power to heal me?" Spiritual power could relieve pain, so the guard didn't think too much and immediately channeled spiritual power to slowly caress the hideous wounds on the young man's body. When the spiritual power touched Tong Bing's dantian, Tong Bing's eyes showed a glimpse of murderous intent. The dagger he held in his hand mercilessly pierced into the guard's chest, then he activated the devouring power. The devouring power could only be used on people who were willing or had no resistance. It was useless to people whose strength was stronger than him. Tong Bing waited for more than half a month, maintaining a weak and harmless appearance, to win the sympathy of the people around him, just for this moment. Chapter 15-16. Same person? A moment later, the guard who had been sucked dry fell to the ground with his eyes wide open. Tong Bing glanced at it with a sneer and put the corpse into the storage ring that Nangong Exen gave him. There were many guards around Nangong Exen, so he wouldn't care if a guard was missing. The wound on Tong Bing's body healed completely at a speed visible to the naked eye, and his skin became tight and smooth again. Tong Bing wore his clothes, put up an innocent and weak expression again, and walked toward the room where Nangong Exen and Nangong Hua used for discussion. In the conference hall, Nangong Exen was talking about what happened after meeting Shiyu. He looked infuriated, then there was a glimpse of greed and lust, making that fat face distorted and trembling from time to time. Nangong Hua knew his younger brother best. By looking at his expression, he could tell that Nangong Exen had ill intentions against the young man named Shiyu. He felt disgusted instantly. "There are so many women, yet you just prefer men. Nan Gonghua had always looked down on this younger brother, but he didn't expect that his nephew, known as the most talented person in the Nangong family, would also have such a bad habit. At this moment, the door of the room was suddenly pushed open carefully, revealing the head of a handsome young man with nervousness and fear. Nan Gonghua and the others recognized at a glance that this young man was the toy boy who rolled the bed with Nan Gong-exin just now. Nan Gonghua hated this kind of people the most, and he immediately said coldly, "Third brother, you really are getting more and more carefree. How can you let this lowly thing wander around? He even dares to come here." Because of his high cultivation and the fact that this was the lower realm, Nan Gonghua never thought of letting the guards guard outside. He didn't expect Tong Bing to come in on his own. Even old lady Nangong, who had always maintained a kind and worried face, frowned with deep disgust in her eyes. Yun Jingxue raised her eyebrows in anger and swung the whip fiercely at Tong Bing. "Scum, who let you in? You tired of living?" Tong Bing's flesh was ruptured by the whip, and he rolled all over the floor in pain. However, instead of rolling outside, he rolled into the house. He screamed while crying, "Third master, help me, help me. I just want to help you. You know that I'm the one who knows Shiyu and king of his majesty Hell the best. Please help." As soon as Tong Bing said this, before Nangong Xian asked for pardon for him, Nan Gonghua had already narrowed his eyes and raised his hand to stop Yun Jingxue. He walked over slowly, looking condescendingly at Tong Bing lying on the ground covered in whip marks and ragged clothes. "You know Shiyu and Nangongyu?" Tong Bing was sobbing and shrinking his body with a pure and harmless appearance. "I used to study at Miracle Healer Academy. Shiyu, he is the same person as me. I lived with him in the same dormitory once, so I saw him hooking up with His Royal Highness King of Hell and even other men." Yun Jingxue showed a disgusted expression. She said with a distorted face, "A person like you? So he is really a toy boy that anyone can play with?" Thinking of the scene where Nangong Xian pressed Tong Bing just now, Yun Jingxue was so disgusted that she was about to vomit. Tong Bing's eyes were crying with a pale and pitiful face, but he didn't say anything. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.